96.3 WHUR and HUR Voices, Sirius XM, Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. Your questions or comments toll free at 855-288-4876. Now, Insight.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. They are coming for you. Scammers and identity thieves getting information about you to open credit accounts in your name and leave you hanging with the bills or worse. So what are the scams and what can happen if you don't protect your identity? Well, James Munton is an ID security expert and author of The Con, How Scams Work, Why You're Vulnerable, and How to Protect Yourself. He's on the telephone. In studio, Lynette Fletcher, she was a victim of identity theft. Lines are open. If you have a question or if you have a comment about identity theft and scams and what these crooks and criminals are out there doing, give us a call right now at 202-319-7810. That's 202-319-7810 outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876, 855-288-4876. Lynette, James, thank you both for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi.
James, let me start with you. We've heard so much about scams, phone scams, computer scams. Kind of give me a rundown of what these crooks are doing to get your attention and get your ID.
Right. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. It's such an important topic, and it's something we really need to take seriously. Every day we hear about these stories, but when we hear them, they don't really register because we all think the same thing, that it's not going to happen to me. That other guy was dumb for falling for it. And the fact of the matter is, we lock up our cars and we lock our front doors when we go to bed at night, and we're very careful about that kind of security. But Americans are 40 times, that's 40 times more likely to be the victims of some kind of fraud than they are to have their cars stolen or their homes burgled. So it's a big issue, and we really need to deal with it.
So what are they doing? What kinds of things are they doing that a lot of people may miss? We often hear about the elderly. I want to hear about that too. But perhaps for those of us who think that we are not vulnerable, to think that we have it all together and that they can't fool us, what are they doing to fool us?
So there are certain elements of almost every scam or con that's out there. The number one thing is they're going to offer you either a carrot or a stick. They're going to either, in the case of a carrot, offer you something that you want, that you really want. It might be you just want a prize, or maybe, hey, I've got a little business opportunity for you. But they need to get you hooked. In the case of a stick, it's something that you really don't want. For example, maybe a phony arrest warrant in your name that you can take care of real quickly if you just pay $50 credit card over the phone. It's a scam. Another case of a stick might be something you don't want to happen to a loved one. You don't want them to come into harm. They've got you on your emotions. And the second element of the scam is there's going to be some sense of urgency. You've got to do this right now. You've got to act now. You've got to be in it to win it in the case of a prize, or you've got to act right now if you don't want something bad to happen to someone. And then the third element is there's usually some kind of element of confusion in there. You think everything's going one way, and then suddenly they throw a wrench in the works, and you're not sure what's going on now, and you're confused. And it's at that moment when they have the fourth element, which is the ask. That's when they're going to ask you to do something. They're going to ask you to either give them money, or in the case of ID theft, they're going to ask you to give them your personal information, bank numbers, date of birth, social security.
Now, in these cases, you talk about phone calls, for example, but what about things that you may get in the mail or even internet scams?
Well, we're actually seeing a big increase now in scams perpetrated by mail or on the phone. What's interesting is now people are getting a bit wise to all these email scams that are going on. So people aren't really as trusting of those emails that come saying some overseas person has millions of dollars to send you. We know all that's baloney now. However, people do still trust the mail, and they trust it when someone phones them up. And so there are several cons and scams that are going around right now. In the case of the telephone, we've heard of some of the grandparent scams where people are identifying elderly people and phoning them up and pretending to be their grandchildren and saying, hey, it's me. And then the elderly person says, is that Tony? And he says, yeah, sure, it's Tony. I'm in trouble. I need some money. So that's going around a lot. But again, one of the ones we've seen recently, I mentioned earlier, was the phony warrants. These are very sophisticated scams. You'll get a phone call late in the evening. Maybe you're a little sleepy when you get that phone call, and a very official-sounding person says that it's the courthouse, and there's been a warrant issued for your arrest for unpaid fines of some kind. And you say, hang on, I never got any. And they're sympathetic, and they say, I know this happens a lot. You probably didn't get the letters, but we need you to appear in court tomorrow. And suddenly you're thinking to yourself, I've got to go to work. I'm going to have to explain to my boss. And then they hit you, and they say, well, we can remove the need to come into the courthouse. You can now pay over the phone by credit card, and if you do so, you'll waive the court costs as well and save yourself some time. So you pull out that credit card and get the whole thing taken care of. It's a scam.
But hold on, let me stop you there, because how do you know if that's not the real deal? Well,
that's a really good point, and that's what I always advise people to do. Always check it out. If someone phones you and contacts you, you cannot trust that person because they initiated the contact. Another scam that's doing the rounds on the phones right now is that you get a call from your bank saying that there's been some suspicious activity on your account and we need to clear this up quickly and we need to get your account details. Well, hang on a second. Someone just called me on the phone and now is asking me to give them my account? No. What you do in that situation is you thank them for the call, you hang up, and then you go to your wallet where you keep your bank cards, debit cards, credit cards, and on the back of every bank card is a toll-free number, and you call that number because in that case you are now initiating the contact so you can trust the person that you're going to be speaking to.
I want to go to Lynette real quick because you've got a horror story. And the thing about it is you weren't the victim of a scam. You just lost your information, but what happened after that was horrific. Give me a short piece about that because you got a really incredible story.
Yes, Harold. Basically, what happened, one of the fallout situations that happened was I had taken a trip to Jamaica, and on my way back in, I was detained. And the service agent, she looked at me, she looked at her screen, she looked back at me, and I was afraid because I had papayas in my bag that I knew I shouldn't have brought back.
You were already a criminal at that point.
Exactly. So I basically told her, or I didn't say anything. She basically beckoned me to another area. So I said, okay, while everyone else was going in another direction, I went into the opposite direction. So then when I, went to the other service agent, he did the same thing. He looked at me, he looked at the screen, looked at me again. And that's when I revealed that I had papayas and you can have your papayas back. But he beckoned me to another area. So when I was taken to a back room, I was met by, I guess, sheriffs or whomever, the law, and they basically said that I had a warrant out for my arrest in Largo, Florida.
Wow.
I had never been to Largo, Florida. So I told them what happened to me because I was assaulted in the military just a few years prior. And they basically called the sheriff in Largo, Florida. The sheriff let me go. And then I went home. They told me that I needed to retain a lawyer, so I did that the next day.
Need to take a break. When we come back, more about this story and the things that can happen if you are unable to protect your identity, and also what the crooks and criminals are looking for. Lines are open. Give us a call if you have a comment or a question at 202-319-7810. 202-319-7810. Outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876. 855-288-4876. We'll be back in a moment. WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We're talking about protecting yourself from scams and identity thieves. My guests are James Munton. He is an ID security expert and author of The Con, How Scams Work, Why You're Vulnerable, and How to Protect Yourself. And Lynette Fletcher, she was a victim of identity theft. Lines are open at 202-319-7810. That's 202-319-7810. Outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876, 855-288-4876. If I don't get to you before 7:30, please stay on the line. I promise I will take your call on Sirius XM. Let me go to Calvin. Calvin, calling from Washington, D.C. What's on your mind?
I was a person one time, they called saying I had won some money from someplace over in Australia, and he wanted to use my credit card, but luckily, I gave him a card that wasn't active, right? He kept calling me back saying that I owe him this $300-something that I never had, said I wanted any money for. Later on, I got a call from a D.C. number, U.S. Customs. They're talking about the money's waiting there, but I found out from police that was a super fresh store with the Customs. There was a whole lot of things going on, and I have to learn that when you do this type of stuff, like you said, it could be used for a fraud or something like that. And I do have a credit card account, but I watch what I use it with.
Mm-hmm. Well said, Calvin. I appreciate that. You seem to be on top of these things. Thank you for your phone call. Let me go to Leslie calling from Columbia. Leslie, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Yes, hi. Literally just yesterday, my wallet was stolen out of my car at work. And as crazy as it seems, yes, I stuck it under the seat, so there wasn't much cash in it at all. However, my concern is that my identity, my driver's license, a parent's state ID, and everything was in my wallet. So what are the next steps that I can take? I did file a report and everything, and the officer did tell me to go ahead and give a call to the bureau so that, I can alert them that someone does have my ID in case someone tries to open, cards or what have you in my name.
James,
can I respond to that real quick?
Yeah, please, go right ahead, James.
Yeah, so did you contact your... I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Leslie.
Leslie, did you contact your bank already?
I did indeed.
Okay, so you need to contact all the people that issued those various cards, first of all. So you need to go to the DMV and you need to contact... first of all, I apologize for what you've gone through because it's bad enough having your wallet stolen, but now you're going to have to clear up a whole bunch of stuff. And it's going to sound like a lot, but you can do it step by step and you'll get there. So first of all, you want to contact all the issuers of those cards and let them know what's happened. Mm-hmm. And the next thing is you want to start checking your credit report. And Harold, this is something all your listeners need to be doing on a fairly regular basis. You are all allowed by law to have a free credit report at least once a year. Now, there's 3 credit reporting agencies, and you can find all this stuff on the web, and you're allowed actually to get a free report from each agency. So technically, you can have 3 reports every year. Now, what you're going to need to do, Leslie, is over the next few months, as you check your credit report, you want to look out for any new accounts that are being opened that you don't recognize, particularly look for new car loans. Anything pops up on there that wasn't you, that you didn't do, then you need to be on that and on that real quick. You might also consider, you've also reported this to the police, correct?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, so you want to keep a copy of your police report. And in fact, the other thing you want to do from here on is document every step that you do. So when you go to the banks, tell them, just make a note in a book somewhere and say, I did this on such and such a date. When you go to the DMV, make a note of that you did that. You're going to get very good now at organization, keeping records of things. But the thing is, it will make it much easier later if something else happens. Now, you may get off scot-free. We're talking about the worst case scenario here. It may be just a couple of kids, they took the cash and they've thrown the wallet somewhere and you're going to be fine. But it's better to be safe than sorry. So basically, check the your credit report, make sure nothing's untoward happening, and then if there is, then what you're going to do is you're going to step in and place a fraud alert on your credit report.
Well, hold on.
Can you say that again?
Before we go into that, because I've got to take another break, Leslie, don't hang up. Monique, Phil, Rosalind, please stay with us. The Daily Drum will continue on Sirius XM, Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. Jeff Brown is next with the original Quiet Storm on 96.3 WHUR. More information about identity theft, scammers, how to protect yourself, and what can happen if you're not careful. We'll be back in just a few seconds on Sirius XM, Channel 141. Stay with us.
The Howard University Radio Network is WHUR 96.3 FM, WHUR World 96.3 HD2, student-run WHBC HD3, glasshouseradio.com, SiriusXM Channel 142, HBCU, and SiriusXM Channel 141, HUR Voices, Washington.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We're talking about protecting yourself from scams and identity thieves. My guests are James Munton. He is an ID security expert and author of the book, The Con, How Scams Work and Why You're Vulnerable and How to Protect Yourself. And Lynette Fletcher, she was a victim of identity theft. We're going to hear more from her in just a bit. If you have a question, if you have a comment, the lines are open. If you can't get through, please, I promise I will get to you. Keep trying at 202-319-7810. That's 202-319-7810. Outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876, 855-288-4876. James, we were talking with Leslie before the break. You were suggesting that she put some form of credit ID lock on her.
Yes.
On her, Social Security number, or how does that work?
Well, it's called a fraud alert, and it's very simple to do. What you do is you just need to contact one of the 3 credit agencies, and those, by the way, are Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. You've probably heard about these before, and you've just ignored them. But what they are is they're the people that if someone wants to open a new account, let's say you want to go and get a car loan, and they bring up your credit history in the dealership, what they're doing is they're checking with one of those 3 companies basically to see if your credit's good. And so those are the agencies. So what happens is anytime someone wants to open an account, they've got to go through those agencies. So when you put on a fraud alert, what that means is next time someone tries to get a car loan on that account, it pops up a flag and says, hang on a second, we've got a few extra questions we need to ask first. And it just is a level of protection so that they now can't commit more identity theft on you and take out accounts in your name.
And one other thing before I let you go, Leslie, you can also check in with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, depending on, the level of what has happened. Of course, that's that new government consumer agency that was started, I guess it's been about 6 years or so ago, that really helps with any of the issues that American consumers have when they're dealing with these kinds of issues, and you can find them online at consumerfinance.gov. So just something for you to think about.
Wonderful. Thank you all so very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate that. Phil, calling from Washington, D.C. What's on your mind, Phil?
Hi, I'm calling because I have an elderly father who lives in Ohio, and he constantly gets calls from scammers even though he's on the do not call list. So I wanted to ask your guest, how should people deal with scammers? How should people avoid the issue of scammers who disregard the do not call list? Is there anything they can do to track the calls? And then secondly, is there anything the government is doing to help stop scammers? Because he's even gotten calls out of the country that have claimed that there's something wrong with his computer, and he has to go onto his computer and do X, Y, and Z.
James?
That last thing you just said is the biggie that's going around right now. Everyone listening to this right now, listen to this. If you get a phone call from someone saying they're calling from Microsoft, saying that they've detected problems with your computer and that they're here to help you, they ain't here to help you. They're here to take your money. So please, that one's the big one that's going around. In general, on these phone calls, it's what I said earlier. When they approach you, when they call you, your guard has to be up. And you have to develop a scam sense. And basically just assume, unless you know otherwise for sure, that this person is not who they say to be. And in the case of your father there, just advise him to thank them politely for the call and hang up. Don't get involved in any kind of conversation with these people. They're very good at keeping you on the line. The longer they keep you on the line, they know the more chance they've got with you. So you don't have to be rude. Just hang up, and that's it. Okay. Move on with your life.
Is there anything he can do to stop the calls? Because there are some nights he gets 2 and 3 calls, and I feel so bad. It's truly preying on the elderly.
It really is, and that's the awful thing about it. They do prey on the elderly. Actually, what they're doing is they're phoning everyone, but the elderly are more likely to respond because elderly people tend to be nice, and they don't like to hang up on people, and they engage in conversation. So unfortunately, if he's already on the do not call list, that's right there is the best thing he can do. And if he wasn't on that do not call list, he'd be getting 10, 20 times as many calls. So that right there is bringing down the number. With the 2 or 3 that get through, that they don't care about the do not call list, just hang up on them.
Yeah. Well, Phil, thank you so much. Lynette, I want to go back to you because you said this was really kind of the beginning of this, I guess, tawdry experience of of ID theft and everything else. After the Florida incident, what happened?
Well, actually, the incident started downhill before that. It's just that I tried to rectify the situation myself because I started getting calls from telephone companies with $1,500 phone bills and apartment complexes with leases and cars. And, so when the situation went down when I came back into the country, I had to retain a lawyer and I had to prove my innocence because up until that time, in 95, it was coming up on the horizon. Identity theft was. So I was guilty before being innocent.
And this was a new thing because this was what you said, 95. That was 20 years ago.
20 years ago. So I had to basically have my family write affidavits. I had to have my employer write an affidavit. I had to sign my name 25 times and submit all of this to my lawyer so that he could clear my name of the felony because I had a felony in my name and I didn't know it until I came back into the country.
When did it all end? Did it stop? Is your credit clear? Is your record clear? Do you still wonder whether or not there's something in your name out there somewhere, or were you able to get things squared away at some point?
I'm not worried anymore if anything is out there in my name that doesn't truly belong to me. I would say after that incident, it took about a good solid 17 years to just clear, get everything off of my credit that didn't belong to me. I didn't have really any help. It just had to fall off.
The credit bureaus weren't going to say, well, obviously this isn't yours. They, even though obviously this was also very, very new to this ID theft thing, but they didn't understand that this was not you, even with all of the legal battles that you had gone through.
They didn't understand. Like I said, everything was so new. Mm-hmm. So what I was instructed to do, as what James had said, was I had to put a fraud alert on my account. And so I would say about year, probably 8, 9, I started to feel free because I was getting credit reports. I was, requesting credit reports every year, sometimes a couple of times a year, just to ensure things were falling off and the credit that was there was mine.
James, are the credit bureaus now more proactive in addressing these issues?
Yes, that's one good thing. And Lynette, that's just a horrible story. I feel bad for you. And unfortunately, I've heard many stories like yours. And again, when I was saying about people don't take this stuff seriously, Lynette, for 17 years ago, she had this going on. The good news is they are getting better. The banks are getting better. The police are getting better. The police are getting a lot more understanding now of these crimes. And then also, the credit agencies are doing a pretty good job as well. The fact of the matter is, though, that prevention is the best medicine always. And so, as Lynette has just said, she's got pretty good now at checking her credit report and being proactive. And that's what people need to be doing before something awful happens to them.
Yes, I would say also, too, just be very protective of your Social Security number. I see people a lot, like guys usually, with their Social Security card in their wallet. Take that out of your wallet. Don't walk around with your passport. Leave all of that stuff under lock and key at home. You don't need that on your person.
Yeah, some really, really good advice. Let me go to Monique. Monique calling from Alexandria, Virginia. Monique, what's on your mind?
Hi, how you doing?
Doing just fine.
I'm fine. I was calling because I was a victim of scam. What happened was I had got a letter in the mail from MoneyGram saying that I have to go and pay $156. So I was scared, and they said if you don't pay it within 24 hours, you're going to go to jail. So I'm scared, afraid. I thought I owed it, but I didn't. Come to find out, I mailed the money. So like a year later I got a letter in the mail from the FBI in New York City saying, give us a call. You've been a victim of a scammer. So they did arrest the guy. What happened was he was going through people's mail, like the trash, and he was getting their identity like that and scanning people. So it was kind of scary. So after that, I got a shredder. And I always keep my stuff locked up now because of that. So
shredding documents. That is such a big deal. Monique, thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. Talk to me a little bit about that, James. You see these shredders in Office Depot and all of that stuff.
Have one. They're not that expensive, and I tell you, the $25 you spend on a shredder could save you an awful experience like Lynette had. What just happened to Monique was what they call dumpster diving. That's the scam name for it. And literally they'll go in the back where your trash is, and they'll go through and they'll pull out documents, and people throw away all sorts of things about themselves. So, shred that stuff.
Wow. Let me go to Janine. Janine calling from Washington, D.C. Janine, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Yes, I was calling because I had an incident with someone that has the same name as I do.
Oh, wow.
And they were able to access a lot of my information because the names are spelled exactly the same.
How does that?
What can I do?
Yeah, how does that work, James? Because if you have a Janine Jones, that's a really common name, but if the Social Security numbers are different, addresses are different, how do they still get access?
Well, if they don't have the same Social Security number, then it should be difficult for them to actually open new accounts in your name. What sort of, I don't know if you want to be specific, Janine, but is there anything in particular that has been, an account that's been opened or something stolen from you because you share the names?
The person is out of state, and they were able to come to D.C. and get my Social Security number. That's how they access all of my information. By them having the same name, they gave them my Social Security.
Janine, I hate to say this is sad for you, but it's quite exciting because you are a victim of a real con artist here. We probably can't trust even that they do have the same name as you. They've just probably assumed that name. And what they're doing is they're getting a little bit of information that they had about you, and then they're parlaying that into getting more and more information from various places. We like to think everyone, banks and post offices and these places are all very security conscious, but the fact is a good con man can be very charming, very persuasive, especially on the telephone, and with a little bit of information, pretending to be you, having the name, having a few details about you, they can end up getting a lot more information about you. So you need to, I'm afraid, do the same steps that we were talking with the other callers about. You need to put a fraud alert on your credit and get the police involved.
Well, Janine, thank you so much for your phone call. James, you have something you call a suckers list.
Yeah.
I've got about a minute or two before the break.
Sure.
What is a suckers list?
Well, once someone has been a victim of a scam, there's at the end when they discover that they've been conned or scammed, it's very often for con artists to do what they call reloading, because they know this person already is a bit of a sucker. They fell for it one time, they go back again. That's the reloading part. And in certain circles, they actually have a list of people that they've conned and scammed. They pass it around to their friends and buddies or the other scammers. So the suckers list is basically a list of people that they pass around and say, hey, this person's easy. You might want to phone them up to get some money. It's terrible.
Man, you are scaring me, but it certainly is great information, and Lynette with this cautionary tale of what can happen. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, Lines are still open if you have a question or a comment at 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876, 855-288-4876. We're talking about protecting yourself from identity theft and what to look out for when the scammers come looking for you. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Daily Drama on Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue the conversation about protecting yourself from scams and identity thieves. Lines are still open at 202-319-7810, 202-319-7810. Outside of the D.C. calling area, 855-288-4876, 855-288-4876. James, I wanted to share this with you. I suspect that you already know this, but I wanted to make sure that our listeners that do not know are aware of this. And this happened in the state of Maryland some 2 years ago. The state legislature, passed a law that will allow parents to protect the IDs of their children because over the past several years, there's been a rise and identity theft of children. I mean, who has more pristine credit than young people who know nothing whatsoever about how their Social Security numbers are used or how credit is obtained? So, James, what kind of advice do you have? I know it happens in Maryland. There are other states as well. Your thoughts about protecting your child's ID, your ID?
Sure. Well, Harold, I'm so glad that you mentioned that because this is a huge issue. Young people are 51 times more likely to have their identity stolen than adults. And the reason for this is you get hold of a 12 or 13-year-old's identity, you get to use and abuse that ID for 5-6 years before the kid grows up and ever realizes it. So they go to get their first car loan or college loan or apply for an apartment somewhere, bam, the credit history comes up and there's a whole lot of stuff on there. And so just think about that, 5 or 6 years of abuse at the hands of the scammers of your identity. It's really tough to clear that up. So parents need to be vigilant. One of the most important things is if you ever see in your mail a credit card application with your child's name on it, you better check their credit history right now because there shouldn't be any record of your child anywhere in that system. They shouldn't have any loans in their names or anything that would give them a line on their credit history. And the other thing is you mentioned keeping Social Security, or Lynette actually very wisely mentioned that people have to be very aware that a lot of identity theft is happening within the family.
Yeah.
People are getting hold of their nephew or niece's identity and using that.
And what has been happening is sometimes young people have all of these things happening to their credit. They don't know anything about it. They become adults and they go off to college or they try to move out and rent an apartment or buy a car. And then they discover that, that their parents, God forbid, have put the utility bills, in their name, and then they've moved and they not paid the bill, and it really presents a dicey situation. But the reality is that is a crime.
It is.
Yeah. So let me go to Michelle. Michelle calling from Clinton, Maryland. Michelle, thanks for calling. What's on your mind?
Hi. I just had a question about going back to the shredding of documents.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering what documents need to be shredded. Is the address off of magazine that needs to be shredded? Receipt from like the grocery store that has your name on it. Exactly what the extent of shredding does one need to do?
If I may, Harold.
Sure.
Michelle, I would say shred anything that can identify you. I don't know. I'm just very paranoid at this point. So anything with just my name, it gets shredded. And of course, phone number, even my address, everything gets shredded. Once you've been a victim of identity theft, it's not something that I would wish on my worst enemy. So just shred it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
James, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I completely agree. And you know what? When you're in this line, you kind of get paranoid yourself. I don't even use a shredding machine anymore. My stuff goes in boxes, and I take it to a place where they shred it by the ton because I just shred absolutely everything.
Okay.
Okay, and you know, one other thing, Michelle. Depending, well, you're in Clinton, Maryland. No, stay glued to the TV. Keep your ear out for shredding events.
Right.
You know, local television stations, nonprofits, organizations. They always have these Saturday shredding events where you can bring boxes of items, old. Income tax return information, all of that stuff. I've done it myself, and that stuff is not just shredded. It's literally turned into these little pellet-sized pieces of paper. It's really amazing, and they often do this for free. So something to keep in mind. And Michelle, while I have you on the line, let me ask James about this too. When you talk about shredding. Hard drives from old computers.
Oh, yeah.
What about that, James?
Yeah, it's a really important thing to do that. And those shredding services that you mentioned, it's kind of cool. Oftentimes they have a window on the side so you can see the hard drive go in and literally get crushed up. It's really important to do that. Another thing people need to think about a little bit as well, it's kind of a tough one, is that photocopiers actually have a hard drive on. And while public places like libraries and post offices that have photocopiers for people to use, they're pretty good about, you know, the security there. But a company photocopier, I wouldn't use a company photocopier to do any personal photocopying because those hard drives, they record everything that's scanned on those photocopiers, and companies don't do a good job of disposing of those machines, and a lot of scammers are getting their IDs from these hard drives in photocopiers.
Yeah, well, Michelle, thank you so much for your phone call. I appreciate it. And on the company photocopiers, you're not supposed to do that anyway.
That's right.
You know, they tell you, look, if you want to do some of your personal stuff, do it at home. And see, there you go. One more reason not to use the company photocopy to do your child's, you know, project or something like that. James, what is the thing that has surprised you the most since you've, you know, researched and have been involved in trying to help people protect themselves?
Well, one of the main things is just how cold these people can be. Very often, scammers will prey on people when they're at their most vulnerable. One of the things, real quickly, that's a big industry are these phony fortune tellers. I call them the Starbucks of scams because there's one on every corner. You're in D.C. I used to live in D.C. You see these neon signs where you get a $5 palm reading. Well, what happens is when they get a real needy person in there who's really at a low spot, they'll prey on them, and they'll scam them into handing over sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. So one of the things that really surprises me is just how low these people can go.
That's amazing. You know, Lynette, you said something earlier that kind of caught my ear, and I don't think that you were just saying it lightly. You said that you are a little paranoid since this has happened to you. Do you think it's paranoia, or do you think you're just extra security conscious? I mean, you know, be honest.
I think it's both. Mm-hmm. It's both. Now that I'm more aware, I just, you know, I tend to walk through life more intelligently in regards to my social security number and my identity as a whole. It was very traumatizing going through that situation. I just wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It was horrific.
Mm-hmm. When you went to buy a home, were you nervous? What happened?
I was very nervous. When my realtor pulled my credit report, she had seen some things. I let her know that they weren't mine. I had to, again, write a statement of everything that did not belong to me so that she could take it to the lender and explain to the lender, as well as give the lender the letter. And I was able to buy the house after that. Mm-hmm. Of course, you know, with things changing today with buying a home, I'm sure, you know, that letter wouldn't go over as easy as it did, you know, in 2001, but it helped me out.
Are you still here in 2015? Are you still experiencing any residual issues, or do you believe that it is now, you know, over and done, no more problems? So, for example, if you wanted to open up an account at, you know, Macy's or Costco's or someplace like that, do you think that there would be a red flag, or do you think things would happen? You know, I don't know what your credit is like, but I mean, you know.
Well, I did purchase another house last August, and I'm happy to say that I'm I'm free and clear. I feel that I'm free and clear. I also purchased a car free and clear. So I feel like I'm safe. So I just want to stay safe.
Mm-hmm. Okay. James, I have about 3 minutes or so left. Anything else you want to add to really help people stay safe, to watch out for these, whether it's a phone call, whether it's something in the mail, or, you mentioned something about, young people, old seniors needing to, when they pick up the phone, they like being, nice to people. They don't want to be mean. And I got to tell you, after my car was paid for, I'm still getting phone calls from people who are really forceful and obtuse, wanting me to pay them for a warranty, for example, and which is just amazing to me. And they sound like bill collectors.
Yeah. Well, I think the important thing, I'm so glad that Lynette's story has kind of ended on a happy ending, and she's in the clear now, and I think it's a good message to people, especially if they're in the middle of it right now, that there's lights at the end of the tunnel, and they're going to be okay. Look, we get in our cars. We know how many car accidents there are on a daily basis all around the country, but we don't get scared of driving our cars. We put on a seatbelt, and we take the precautions we need to take in order to stay safe. It's the same thing with these cons and scams. Yeah, there's bad people out there to get us. But if we just take a little bit of caution, if we're careful what information we give to people who phone us or email us or talk to us in the street, then we're going to be okay.
And James, for people that are interested in finding out more about you, where can they find you on the web?
And the website, which is scamfu.com, like kung fu, scamfu.com. And then I've got the book called The Con, which is widely available in libraries, and you can also get it on Amazon if you like. And I've got a contact form on my website. I can't offer legal advice, or the first stop you want to go to is the police. But hey, if you want to get in touch, get in touch.
Mm-hmm. And that is a safe website, right? I'm not.
That's the real website. Scamfu.com.
Scamfu.com.
There you go.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, I want to thank both of you, James Munton and Lynette Fletcher, and I hope that your credit continues to do well. And
thank you.
And for those parents out there, protect your child's Social Security number, not just from outside forces, but perhaps from people that are a little closer to home. You don't want to have your children going through this kind of nightmare. So just something to consider. And if you have questions about that, check with the Attorney General in your state, Maryland, Virginia, or other Attorneys General's offices around the country. You will find consumer protection information. That is the Daily Drum on Sirius XM Channel 141 for this Wednesday, January 14th. I'm Harold Fisher. You can reach me at hfisher@WHUR.com, on Facebook at Harold T. Fisher, or Twitter at hfisherWHUR. Now, stay tuned for the Hang Suite. Good night.
The Howard University Radio Network is WHUR 96.3 FM, WHUR World 96.3 HD2, student-run WHBC HD3, GlassHouseRadio.com, SiriusXM Channel 142, HBCU, and SiriusXM Channel 141, HUR Voices, Washington.
It was Friday night at the candlelight. I knew from the first sight that I was attracted to you.